All right, so this is our last section, and we're going to pull lots of things that we know all together and talk about equivalent expressions. So this is the ultimate in equivalent expressions. So first, let's talk about this screen here. Show mathematically why 20% off of 80% is equivalent to 80 times 4/5. All right, well, let's look at this. 20%. What are all the ways I can write 20%? Well, I can write the 20%. Oh, let me get a thing here. Sorry about that. Let me turn that sound off. So 20% can also be 1/5 or 0.2, right? So if I want to take and find 20% off of the 80, I would have to do 80 and then maybe multiply by one of these, maybe 0.2, and figure out the answer to that, which would be if we do 80 and 0.2, so you see 0, 6, 1. All right, so then that would give me 16. So 16 would be how much that I'm getting off. So 80, I want 20% off of it. So I don't want to just find what is 20% of 80. I want to find what 20% off of it is. So that's 80 minus the 16, which then gives me 64. Okay, so I can do it like that. Or what is happening here? Why is it 4/5? Well, you know, when you're in fifths, it's 0.2 for 1/5, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8. So if I'm getting 20% off, then I'm paying 80% of it, right? So if I take 80 and multiply it by 4/5, I don't have to do all these steps. I can go right to my answer. So I'm just going to make this guy the whole number into a fraction. So 4 times 80 is going to give me 320, right? And then over 5, and then I just figure out how many times that goes into there. So let's see what that turns out to be. So 5 can go in there 6 times for 30, and 20, 0, ooh, it goes in 4 times. And so if you look, we've gotten the same answer, 64. So I'm paying $64 if I'm getting 20% off. So it's the same thing if I'm taking off. Here's the magic thing. I'm finding what 20% off of 80 is. I'm not just trying to find 20% of 80. So this is equivalent to it. It's doing the same thing. That's a handy little thing, right? Handy little piece of knowledge. So if I were to give you these expressions and I asked you, okay, here's one, here's another one, how about 150 plus 0.4 times 150. What about 150 minus 0.6 times 150? Or 150 minus 0.4 times 150? So let's look at these guys. See. Oh, I did that one twice. Okay, so let's look at these. Which one, if I'm getting 60% off, then I'm paying 40, right? So let me change colors here. So this would be 60% times that. So all that's doing is just finding what is 60% of 50, but it's not finding taking it off. This is finding if I'm getting 60% off, then I'm paying 40%. So this would be 40% times 150. So think about that. Would that give me my answer that I'm looking for? And then this is 150 plus, and then I'm finding 40%, and I'm adding it to it. Well, I'm getting money off, so that's not right. I know that's not right. And then this is 150 minus, okay, so here I'm doing 60% times 150, and I'm subtracting that from 150. That is going to find my answer. So what if I did 150 minus, if this is finding 40%, so I'm taking 40% of it off. That's not right, because I'm getting 60% off. So then what about this guy? This is 40% times 150. Well, that's not going to do it, because all that's doing is finding 40%. So this one is an equivalent expression. Okay? All right, let's look at another one. Okay, now look at the way this one's worded. This is 40% marked up by 80%. So let me give you some options here. What if we had 1.4 times 80? Think about that expression. What if we had 140 times 0.2, or 140 times 1.8? That's interesting. What if we did 140 minus 0.8 times 120? Interesting. 140 plus 0.4 times 120, or 120 times 80%. Okay? So we want it marked up. Well, let's look at this, and let's change our color. So what's happening in this one? Well, this is like we're trying to say 100%. This is 140% times 80. So this is like if it was reversed, like if it was $80 and 140%. So they got this backwards. So that's the problem there. What if we do 140 times 0.2? Well, let's see. That would find 20%. But this is being marked up. So that's not quite right either. Then this one's 140 times 100% and 80%. That's what this is, because if you change this this decimal to its percent, it would be 180%. If I multiplied 140 times 180%, that'd be 100% would be the whole thing, and plus the 80% markup. This is equivalent, because I'm marking it up 180, like the total cost will be 180% when I'm done, because I'm paying 100% plus that 80% more. That one's cool. Now here I'm doing 140, and I'm subtracting, and I'm finding 80%. So I'm finding 80% of this, and I'm subtracting it from it. Well, it's a markup, so I know subtraction's not going to do it. This is 140% plus I'm finding 40% of it, and then because I'm multiplying by 40, I don't even know why that's not equivalent to, it's not the 0.2 or the 0.8, so that's no good, because where did 40% come from? And then this guy we're doing 80% times 20, but then we'd have to add it. There has to be a step adding it back to the 120, so that's not it. So this is equivalent. Okay? All right, so let's just go to my next example. All right, what happens with 20% of 50? All right, well, let's look at what's going on here. Let's give us some options. What if we did, now notice we're not doing a markup, and we're not doing a markdown. We're not doing a discount or a sale. This is just finding 20% of 50. Okay, so we're not trying to find like a sale price or anything. So let's look at some options here. Which one of these are equivalent? Because that's what we're looking at in this section, equivalent expressions. So what if we had this? All right, so let's look at what's going on in here. Let's take these all step by step. So 50 times 20, well, we know we can't just multiply by 20. If you multiply by a percent, you have to use its decimal. So we know that one's wrong. Then 1/5 times 50. 1/5 is equivalent to 20%, right? That's its fraction equivalent. So that would find 20% when I'm done. Then this is 0.2 times 50. Well, that'd work because 0.2 is equivalent to 20% and 1/5. Now what about this? We're finding 20% of 120. Oh, that should say 50. We're finding 20% of 50 and then adding it to itself. That's like we're trying to do some kind of markup. That's not right. Then this is 0.4 times 50. That's finding 40% of 50 and subtracting it from itself. We're not doing any kind of discount, so that's not right. Okay, so then these two would be equivalent expressions to this. Okay? All right, and let's look at one more thing for equivalent expressions. Okay, let's say that I have this guy right here, and then I have all these options for equivalent expressions. All right, well, you know what? We need to simplify this and see if anything down here is the same. Okay, so hopefully you see these guys and you think to yourself, distributive property, because as soon as you see a number out front of a set of parentheses with something being added or subtracted inside, that is distributive property, man. So we need to go ahead and do each piece. So this turns into 6x plus 16 negative 3 times 4, so that's going to be a minus 12x minus 18. Then we're going to distribute here. So a negative 2x and a negative 2 times a negative 6 is going to be a plus 12. All right, now we're going to combine like terms. So everything with an x, these guys get combined. So 6x minus 12x's is a negative 6x. Minus 2 more is a negative 8x. Now we're going to switch colors here. Here are constants. Okay, so 16 minus 18 is a negative 2 plus 12 is 10. So that's plus 10. All right. Okay. So then we're going to see which one of these. Oops, and I made a mistake. I'll tell you that I intended this one to be an answer because it was supposed to have a plus sign, but I accidentally made a negative sign there. So this guy is an exact match. So sorry about that. That was supposed to be a plus sign. So then anything else that could be a match. We know this doesn't even have an x in it, so that can't be right. And then this, that's a positive 8 and a minus 20, so we know that's out. That doesn't match in any way. All right, now these have distributive properties, so these could match. They just might be hidden. So let's distribute these out and see what these guys are. So this would be a negative 8 and a negative 10. Well, that wouldn't be it. And then this would be an 8x minus 8. That doesn't match. This would be a negative 2x plus 16. That wouldn't match. And then this would be a negative 2x plus 20. So that doesn't match. Okay? But if I changed, what if I would have had like a 2 minus 4x plus 5. Then that would have matched, right? Because that would have been negative 8x and a 10. So this would have been an answer. Okay? All right. So I think that we're done. And I'll talk to you later.